Hey guys, tonight we're sailing somewhere that almost feels like the edge of the world. You're standing on the deck of a weathered Norse ship, its planks slick with salt and frost. Ahead, Greenland rises from the fog of vast, pale land of ice and whispering wind. The sea behind you moans softly, as if it knows how far you've come, and how strange your dreams are. You've left behind the green fjords of Iceland and the warm mead halls of Norway. Out here, the air tastes like iron, and the light never quite fades or fully returns. It's a place where time moves like ice, slow, ancient, and a little bit stubborn. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Tell me in the comments where you're listening from and what time it is. Maybe you're in a warm bed somewhere tropical. Or maybe you're wrapped in a blanket by a rainy window. Wherever you are, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum. And let's ease into tonight's journey together. Your boots crunch into snow as you step onto the rocky shore. It's the late 10th century and Eric the Red's colony has barely begun to take root. The wind bites, but the settlers around you grin through the cold. They've named this place Greenland with hopeful irony as sails pitch more than a fact. Still, they dream. They save the gods' smile, and the summers stretch just long enough. They might plant vineyards here, grapes of all things, the same fruit that grows in soft valleys far to the south, where the air hums with bees and laughter. But here in this hard land, even grass seems unsure of itself. You glance back at the ship. Its sail droops like a tired flag, and beside it lies a small wooden chest. Inside, someone has tucked away a carved cup from Iceland, smooth and pale, worn by many hands. You pick it up for a moment. It's meant for wine, though no wine has ever been poured into it here. Maybe one day, they think, when the vines grow and the grapes ripen, they'll use it to toast their new life. For now, it's just a promise. Carried across an unforgiving sea, the settlement sits low against the wind, a cluster of turf-roofed houses built into the hillside. From the smoke curling through the chimneys, you can smell seal fat burning, mingled with the sharper tang of pine brought from far away. People move like bundled shadows, farmers, sailors, dreamers, all wrapped in wool and hope. One man points to a patch of ground near the shore. There, he says, that's where we'll start the vineyard. You try not to laugh. The soil looks like frozen gravel, but his eyes are bright. His hands calloused and ready. Later, inside one of the longhouses, warmth hits you like a wave. The air is thick with smoke and the faint sweetness of dried fish roasting on the fire. Someone presses a horn of mead into your hand. It's rough, more honey than refinement, but it warms your chest as you sip. Around you, settlers talking, low voices about everything they miss. The softness of moss under bare feet, the taste of apples, the feel of rain that doesn't sting. Someone mentions grapevines again, wild ones, growing somewhere west, across the sea in a place they call Vinland. A rumor, maybe, or a memory from a dream. As the night deepens, the wind rattles the roof. You think about how strange it is too. Build a life where almost nothing grows, how brave or foolish it must feel to plant hope in ice. The carved cup sits near the hearth, catching the firelight. Its rim glows gold, like the promise of something yet to come. You can almost imagine the taste of wine, the warmth of the sun it once absorbed. Even though you've never been to those lands yourself, outside, the stars are hard and bright. You step out, your breath a cloud. Somewhere out on the water, ice. Creaks a sound both alive and ancient. You pull your cloak tight and glance back at the longhouse. Through the small window, you see the settlers' silhouettes laughing, arguing, dreaming. You realize that these people have built a world, not of what is, but of what might be. That's what makes them Vikings, not the raids or the legends, but this wild, stubborn faith that the impossible might bloom under their hands. You tilt your head, listening. The wind carries voices from the sea low, almost singing. For a heartbeat, it sounds like the old songs of Norway. Then it fades, replaced by the steady whisper of snow falling on frozen earth. Somewhere deep inside, you know this moment will stick with you. The first night on Greenland. The night the settlers began to dream of Wyandotte in the morning, the world is white and endless. The sea has frozen in places, trapping fragments of driftwood. In ice like insects in amber, you kneel by the shore and touch the frozen soil its hard as stone. But under the surface, maybe there's softness waiting, if you're patient. If you believe hard enough, a gull cries overhead, and the sound echoes like a question. What kind of dreamer tries to grow grapes in a land of frost? You smile to yourself. The same kind of dreamer who sails across the world for a name like Greenland. You take one. Last look at the carved wooden cup before tucking it back into its chest. It's light, but it feels heavy in meaning. Someday, it might hold the first drop of Greenland wine, or maybe it will just sit in the dirt, waiting centuries for someone else to find it and wonder. For now, the settlers begin to build fences and turn soil, and you walk among them, boots, leaving shallow prints in snow. You can feel the pulse of something ancient, underfoot determination, or maybe just stubbornness wrapped in frost. The wind sighs again, and the day drifts softly into grey. The longhouse breathes like a living creature, warm air, and smoke exhaling through its turf roof in soft, steady pulses inside. Shadows move along the walls, bending and stretching with the flicker of the hearth. You duck through the low doorway, and the smell hits you first. Wood smoke, wet wool and pine resin clinging to the rough beams. It's the kind of smell that sinks into your hair and refuses to leave for days. You settle near the fire, rubbing your hands together, the cold finally retreating from your skin. Around you, the settlers move with the slow rhythm of people who have learned patience. A woman kneads dough made from barley and seal fat, humming under her breath. A boy grinds dried berries between stones, their red dust staining his fingers. You can hear the crackle of logs as they collapse into embers, each one hissing like it remembers the forest it came from. There's laughter to the kind that feels earned after a day of hauling, building, and hoping. Someone passes you a bowl of broth, cloudy but comforting, and a hunk of dried fish. The broth tastes faintly of seaweed and ash, and you can't tell if that's good or just what food tastes like here. Still, it warms you. The man beside you, his beard stiff with frost, raises a horn of mead in greeting. To vineyards in the snow, he says, grinning. The others chuckle, but not cruelly. There's something in their eyes that says they want to believe him. The mead smells thick with honey and smoke. You take a cautious sip, and the sweetness lingers, coating your tongue. The woman across the fire smiles. It's good, isn't it? We made it from the last of the honey from Iceland. Her voice is soft but steady, like she's used to speaking over storms. You nod, swallowing the warmth that pulls in your chest. In a place like this, even a small sweetness feels like treasure. Someone mentions the grape seeds again. You glance toward the back of the longhouse, where a leather pouch rests on a shelf, small, unassuming, but holding 1,000 hopes. We'll plant them come spring, says an older man, his face lined like a map of rivers. If we dig deep enough, maybe the earth will remember warmth. A few heads nod, others shake. You can tell they've had this argument before, over many fires. The talk drifts from crops to stories, always stories. Someone recalls how Eric the Red claimed this land after being exiled for murder, though here, among the snow and silence, that detail feels distant, almost polite. Someone else jokes that the grapes will grow faster if the ghosts of those he wronged bless the soil. Laughter ripples again, low and drowsy. You realize that humor here is more important than belief. It keeps the dark from swallowing the room. The fire snaps sharply, throwing sparks against the low ceiling. The sound makes you think of faraway bells or maybe stars breaking apart. One of the women tosses a handful of dried pine needles into the flames. The smoke changes instantly richer, sweeter, like resin and hope, to keep the trolls away. She says, half grinning, or the frost. No one argues which is more dangerous. Outside, you can hear the wind clawing at the walls, the snow brushing against the roof like a broom sweeping time itself. The world feels small, wrapped in sound and warmth. You can almost forget the cold pressing at the door. A man at the far end of the room begins to hum an old tune, wordless and slow. The melody curls through the smoky air. blending with the crackle of fire and the soft drip of melting snow from the rafters. You lean back against the wall, feeling the rough fur beneath your shoulders. The warmth seeps deep into your bones. Your eyelids grow heavy, but you fight it. The night feels sacred, somehow the kind of moment that only happens when people gather on the edge of the world, daring to dream beyond it. The settlers talk of Norway, of the grapevines that curl like snakes around sunlit fences, of the way the air there smells of crushed fruit in late summer. You can almost smell it too. Carried faintly by their words, the meat horn comes around. Again, you lift it carefully. Its rim is carved with small runes, half worn by time and touch. You trace them idly with your thumb. Someone murmurs that they mean luck in growth. You smile at that half superstition, half wish. You sip again. The warmth spreads like a slow ember through your chest, and suddenly you understand. They aren't just trying to plant grapes. They're trying to plant belonging. A child crawls close to the fire and watches the sparks rise like tiny spirits. Will the grapes make wine? She asks. Her mother smiles faintly. Maybe one day, she says, if the land forgives us. That line sits with you longer than it should. You glance toward the small window cut into the turf wall. Through the frost-blurred glass, the world outside is nothing but blue and white. Endless, indifferent. Still, inside, it's warm inside. People laugh. And that might be enough for tonight, at least. The man with the frost beard pulls a fur around his shoulders and begins to tell a story. It's one you've half heard before, of a god who tried to steal fire from the ice giants and ended up freezing halfway home. But he never let go of the flame, the man says, leaning forward, his face red in the glow. Not even when his fingers cracked. There's a moment of silence, then nods all around. The settlers understand this kind of stubbornness too well. You close your eyes for a moment, listening. The sound of breathing, soft laughter, the hiss of pine smoke. It all folds together into a single rhythm, the heartbeat of a new world forming. Quietly beneath the snow, somewhere above, the wind changes direction, and a faint creak runs through the roof beams like the house itself is stretching in its sleep. You open your eyes again just as someone stirs the fire, and the light flares. The carved cup from Iceland glints from a nearby shelf, catching a brief shimmer before the light dims again. Its pale surface gleams like a promise, one that still waits, patient and silent. You take one last sip of mead, sweet and smoky, outside. The night deepens, but inside the longhouse the world feels infinite. Morning comes softly in Greenland, not with birdsong, but with the hush of wind brushing snowdrifts and the faint creak of frozen timber. You wake to a world dim and grey-blue, the color of old iron underwater. Inside the longhouse, the fire has died to embers, and the air smells faintly of smoke, wool, and salt. Someone snores from the far end, a low, steady sound that almost blends with the wind outside. You stretch, your fingers brushing the furs that line the sleeping bent trough seal pelts, still carrying the faint scent of the sea outside. The light is thin but bright, like morning seen through a veil of frost. The settlement is stirring, men pulling on cloaks stiff with ice, women shaking snow from baskets, dogs barking lazily at the dawn. The sound is quiet but purposeful. Today is important. Today, they'll open the pouch of seeds brought all the way from Norway, a small miracle wrapped in leather. The man with the frost beard, whose name you've learned is Arnie, calls you over with a grin. You'll want to see this, he says, his breath steaming in the air. He lifts the pouch carefully from a wooden chest, as if holding something sacred. Inside are tiny, wrinkled seeds, grape seeds, brown and unremarkable, like bits of dust. But to these settlers, they're as precious as gold. Brought from Bergen, Arnie says proudly. Smuggled, really. The merchant thought I was mad. He laughs, but his voice wavers just a little. Maybe I am. You kneel beside him as he spreads the seeds in his palm. They look absurdly small against his scarred hand. You imagine the journey they've taken, plucked from vines beneath. The warm Norwegian sun, carried across cold seas, wrapped in wool and hope. You reach out to touch one, and it's smoother than you expected, almost warm from his skin. Behind you, A woman named Astrid unrolls a small sack of soil, dark, rich and sweet-smelling. Brought it from home too, she says. The earth here's too thin, but maybe, if we mix them. She trails off, already scooping handfuls of Greenland dirt, hard and pale like powdered bone, and folding it gently into the imported soil. The two colors blend awkwardly, dark and light, hope and realism stirring together. The settlers gather around, their faces bright in the cold. The air smells of damp wool and pine smoke carried from the long houses. Someone jokes, "Perhaps we should ask Thor for sunshine." Another replies, or Loki for mischief. At least then, something would grow. Laughter ripples through the group, faint but genuine. You kneel by the little wooden trough they've built. It's no vineyard, just a narrow box made from leftover planks, lined with seal hide to hold in moisture. Arnie presses the first seed into the soil with his thumb. There, he says quietly, "Let's see what the gods think of that." You find yourself holding your breath as he covers it with dirt. The act feels strangely ceremonial, part farming, part prayer. Around you, others do the same, tucking their hopes into the earth. One of the women murmurs an old verse under her breath, something about roots that remember warmth even in the coldest soil. Her voice fades, but the rhythm lingers. Inside, you can almost hear what they're imagining, the feel of sun warmed, grapes between fingers, the scent of crushed fruit, the laughter of harvest festivals. It's a fantasy so vivid you can almost taste it, almost, when they're done. Astrid takes a small scoop of melted snow and pours it over the soil. To wake them, she says softly. The water hisses faintly against the cold air. Everyone leans in for a moment, watching. But of course, nothing happens. Not yet. The day passes with small chores, mending nets, chopping wood, trading stories to keep hands busy. But no one forgets the trough outside the longhouse. Every hour, someone checks it, brushing away snow, whispering something half like a prayer, half like reassurance. The wind whistles through the valley, carrying the scent of pine tar from the ship repairs down by the shore dock. By midday, a faint drizzle begins, not rain exactly, more a soft mist that clings to your eyelashes. You walk the perimeter of the settlement, boots sinking into half-frozen mud. You pass the coast, the drying racks for fish, the quiet hum of life built on the edge of nothing. The land stretches out, vast and indifferent. In the distance, mountains rise like the backs of sleeping giants. When you return, Astrid is crouched beside the trough again. She's tracing a small rune into the side with a bone knife. "For luck," she says when she notices you watching. The symbol looks like a tree with shallow roots, fragile but determined. Inside the longhouse, the warmth hits you again. The scent of pine smoke is stronger tonight, mingling with drying herbs and animal fat. You sit near the fire, turning the leather pouch over in your hands. It's empty now, just dust and memory. The others talk quietly, voices weaving through the crackle of flames. Someone mentions how in Norway, the vines grow along hillsides where the soil holds the day's warmth. Someone else says that maybe Greenland's long summer light will do the same. You listen, half believing. The carved wooden cup sits nearby, now serving as a makeshift scoop for melting snow. It looks almost dignified, as if it approves of this new purpose. You dip your finger into it, tasting a drop of icy water. It's sharp, clean, and strangely invigorating. Later, when the others drift to sleep, you step outside again. The mist has thickened, softening the edges of everything. The trough sits alone, barely visible under the pale sky. You kneel beside it and place your hand on the damp soil. It's cool, gritty, unyielding. But underneath, there's a softness that wasn't there before. You can almost imagine something stirring a seed, deciding whether it dares to wake. You close your eyes and listen. The world is quiet, except for the slow drip of melting ice and the far-off groan of shifting glaciers. Somewhere, an owl calls once and then falls silent. You think of all the hands that have touched this soil, all the hope pressed into it. When you stand, your knees ache from the cold, but your heart feels oddly warm. Maybe it's foolish, but you find yourself whispering to the seeds, just once, before turning back to the firelight. Grow, if you can. Behind you, the longhouse. glows softly in the mist, and the scent of pine smoke drifts through the air steady, comforting, alive.